Good afternoon and welcome to the first live Prove It conversation for the Northern California region. We are so happy that you've decided to join us today. We have a special guest today with us, Miss Larissa Wells, who's going to talk to you today about Environmental Justice 101. So get your green bag, get your lunch, and let's just go ahead and learn today. You ready, Miss Larissa?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Take it away.
All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me see if I can fix my camera so I can see if I look at you, looking at you. I want to see you. All right. I'm glad to be here today. Again, my name is Larissa Wells, and I am by trade an urban planner. So I hold a bachelor's degree in urban studies and planning, which deals with 5 areas of policy: land usage, housing, transportation, public health, and public education. And I have a master's degree in public admin with a minor in public management and policy analysis. So my passions, and yes, there are people that look like me that happen to be urban planners, although when we see our neighborhoods, we don't really think so. Yes? Okay, so what we're going to do is today we're going to talk about environmental racism, segregation, and racial injustice. So this is Environmental Justice 101. All right, so go ahead, get ready, and let's do this. All right. So like I mentioned, urban planning, at least where I went to San Francisco State. Okay. I chose San Francisco State because of its political stances and because this deals with the social policy aspect of urban planning. There is the architectural part as well, but the social policy part is the better part. Next slide, please. Next. Oh, thank you. So it's written in the policies. We're wondering why things look the way that they do. Why do Black people seem to be in the same neighborhood? That's a question. It's usually Black and brown people, but today we're talking about Black people. Okay, so it's written in the policies. You have this thing called systemic and institutional racism, and that's what can cause also depression and anxiety. So if we wonder why certain things or certain people seem sad or angry, you walk through the neighborhood, you walk through your hood, and you be like, why are people looking like this? There's a good reason for that. Next slide, please. So this is where it all began. Now, this guy right here, who happened to have been the 28th president, Woodrow Wilson, this is during the second Reconstruction of the United States of America. He came in 1913. All right. And he wrote that Reconstruction placed Southern white men under the intolerable burden of government sustained by the votes of ignorant Negroes. Yes. And I continue. And that those white men responded by forming the Ku Klux Klan. So that's really how the Ku Klux, well, honestly, it's a little more stories behind that, but that's not what we're talking about today. So he described the Klan as an invisible empire of the South, bound together in loose organization to protect the Southern country from some of the ugliest hazards of a time of revolution. So that would be Black people. Okay. During that time, there was more of a Black and white America. And though it may not seem that way today, this is how things came to be. So during Wilson's presidency, he allowed his cabinet to segregate the Treasury, the Post Office, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the Navy, the Interior, the Marine Hospital, the War Department, and the Government Printing Office. This meant by creating separate offices, he literally put a curtain between the white and the Black workers. The reason why he did that came from a movie called The Birth of a Nation in 1915, which the NAACP was fighting strongly against having this shown. However, this also meant creating, like I said, separate offices, lunchrooms, bathrooms, and other facilities for white and Black workers. It also meant dismissing Black supervisors, cutting off Black employees' access to promotions and better paying jobs, and reserving those jobs for white people. So there was a point in time where Black people were allowed to actually work for the government and rise, and they made that type of salary where it would allow them to buy them homes. Well, that's a problem. Next slide, please. After Woodrow Wilson, we had the 29th president come in. That is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, since they had the big collapse of 1929 and white people were losing their homes. Okay. He created this thing called the New Deal. He also created the Federal Housing Administration, that's the FHA, and then the HOLC, which stands for Home Owners Loan Corporation. Now, this was established in 1954. And the HOLC was mainly their only job was to provide home loans to white buyers only, not black buyers, not African American, whichever we choose to be called today. I choose black. So none of those loans were given. And that's exactly what they stood for. But what they also did was create this thing called redlining. Next slide, please. So now, this look a little rough right here. This is Detroit. So federal housing policies created after the Depression ensured that African Americans and other people of color were left out of the new suburban communities and pushed instead into urban housing projects. That sound familiar? You think of New York, you think of Philadelphia, you think of Chicago, you think of California, but mainly those other places that I mentioned. This happens to be Detroit. So these began under the New Deal, and they were state-sponsored segregation programs. All right, which you will also see called de jure, which means that's a federally created program. You also have something called de facto, which you would see later, which means that it just happened that way. So many times you'll hear that term de facto coming from the government. Pay close attention to that language. Okay, they mean like it just happened, like black people just want to be in the ghettos. I'm not sure ghetto. Do you want to be in the ghetto? I don't think so. Okay. So the government's efforts were primarily designed to provide housing to white middle class and lower middle class families. However, African Americans and other people of color were left out of the new suburban communities and instead, like I said, pushed into these housing projects. The the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, further condoned segregation by refusing to insure mortgages in and near African-American neighborhoods. Now, that again is known as redlining. And as we move forward through these slides, I'll show you exactly what that looks like and how it actually applies today and why it's important for you to understand the history. Because if we don't know where we come from, it's impossible for really us to understand what's going on in the present, and even more impossible for us to know what to do in the future. Yes? Yes. All right. So at the same time, the FHA was subsidizing builders who were mass producing entire subdivisions for whites with the requirement that none of the homes be sold to African Americans. Do you just think about it? Do you happen to see any mass production they say, okay, we're building housing. We're building all these housing, but where are they building them and how much are they? Mortgage companies are involved in this. The banks are involved in this, and the federal government condones it. Next slide, please. Government action consigning African Americans to separate and inferior housing has damaged not only our prospects for residential accommodations, it has also harmed our prospects for financial accumulation. See, when you own property, then you got a piece of this so-called American pie. As long as you don't own anything, you won't. Also, that's where jobs come in. And the higher the value, the more businesses will want to come in and support this particular community because that's where the money is. But as long as you have things that are low income and low valued, then no, companies will not come. Case in point, Oakland, California, Eastmont Mall. It used to be, it had J.C. Penney's and Mervyn's and all these stores. It was a wonderful place. Okay. Wonderful place. I lost my Easter shoes there. But now it is the welfare office, the Social Security office, everything that is not anymore. So it went from for-profit to nonprofit. You have to ask yourselves why. So access to employment, which I mentioned, educational advancement, and social acceptance. In 1967, the report by the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, the Kerner Commission, which is here in this slide, famously declared that what white Americans have never fully understood, but what the Negro has never forgotten is, I'm paraphrasing, is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white institutions condone it, and white society rather condones it. Next slide, please. So when we think about environmental justice, we're thinking about place matters. Okay, place does matter. place does matter. What we're looking at right now happens to be in Sacramento, California. That's looking a little rough over there. Would you want to bring your business over there? Probably not. Probably not. So anyway, social determinants of people, of Black people, indigenous people, and other people of color, and the health and the environment. Next slide, please. The New Deal. So we're going back to the New Deal. 50 years after the repeal of Jim Crow, many African Americans still live in segregated ghettos in the country's metropolitan areas, such as New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, Maryland, Oakland, LA. It's so many of them. So many of them. Richard Rothstein, who has this book called The Color of Law. That book will blow your mind. The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. He's a research associate at the Economic Policy Institute. He spent a lot of years developing a lot of this information. So one of the ways in which our government willfully denies or conveniently forgets the history of the creation of ghettos is by sanitizing our language. Remember, I told you, pay attention to the language. They're sanitizing the language like they're calling homeless people unhoused or unsheltered. However, the largest percentage of those that happen to be homeless are Black people, but they're unhoused. I don't know what unhoused means. I know what homeless means. Anyway, they do this by sanitizing the language and then pretending that these problems don't even exist. In fact, many African Americans, through generational transference of poverty, have come to normalize ghettos and life in it. You know, some people say, yeah, the ghetto, they be talking about it all in the songs. There's many songs about the ghetto with attempts to sensationalize the ghetto. But the truth of the matter is, who wants to live in the ghetto? Too Short talks about the ghetto, but if you listen to the whole song, it ain't a place that you want to be. But when you have to be stuck in places like that because of societal norms and policies that have been set forth, then yeah, you come to normalize it. But let me tell you this right now, it's not normal. It's not normal. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do is I need to, if someone could go ahead and click that urban displacement, click that link right there. We're going to watch a short clip. And this is going to explain redlining in its entirety. If you're not able to bring up the clip, it's okay. I will explain it, but I'd like for people to get a visual. Are we stuck? Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and explain it. Oh, you got it coming up?
It won't, it's not showing. It shows on her screen, but it doesn't show on here. So go ahead and explain.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and explain it. So with these areas right here, all right? So green is the best, all right? The HOLC, remember I mentioned them, Homeowners Loan Corporation. All right, so this map is dated back to 1936, 1937. Okay, and what happens is gentrification is able to come through wherever you see these red areas, and yellow areas, you will see a lot of gentrification happening. And what gentrification really means is that, yes, people with money, or, you know, they consider more affluent. I love how they say that. Those that have benefited from privilege and have been able to have home ownership when Black people were not allowed to have home ownership and were forced into projects and things of this nature. So they did these areas. So the green means that's the best place to live. Okay. And the mortgage companies are in on this as well, as are the banks. Okay. The blue areas are, it's not as good as the green area, but it's still good. It's good. Okay. That means that this is all white. That means this is all white. Yellow means it's declining. And what that means is there's an infiltration of what they called, what is the word that they called them? I will think of it in a minute. But we were called some languages to keep white buyers away from these neighborhoods. And in fact, many freeways would actually separate these neighborhoods, okay, from one another. So the yellow areas are slowly declining. That means there are people of color there. Okay. Or they are starting to really come into this area. And then red just means you absolutely don't want to go there. We're not going to finance you or nothing like that. And that's where the Black people live. Okay. So, again, green is where all the white people were. And that's considered great for them to move in. Blue is, it's still good. You can still move there. If you look at where these are, you'll see that a lot of this is Bayview Hunters Point. You'll see the Mission. You'll see downtown. And then you start, as you're going towards the water, you'll start to see it being green and blue and Russian Hill. You'll see green and blue. So that's where all the white people were. And guess what? That's where they pretty much still are. Now over here, this is the Fillmore district. As you see, this is red. Okay, so what has happened recently? Guess what's happened? Gentrification. So people came in because what also happens is when these places are red, you will not have any community block grants to enhance that area. Okay, that's what city council is for. That's what the planning commissions are for. That's what the mayors are for. So hold them accountable, because the Declaration of Independence says we the people. So we the people have the power to put you in. We the people got the power to take you out. Now, go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. This is Oakland Berkeley. Okay. And the HOLC assigned each neighborhood a grade according to favorable and detrimental influences, as I've mentioned before. The president of minority communities was among the so-called detrimental influences. Take Oakland Fruitville neighborhood, for instance. In 1937, HOLC Corporation created this map, as I stated, and what they considered to have, what they described it as having odors from industries, predominance of foreign inhabitants, infiltrations of Negroes and Orientals. I'm going to say that once again. In 1937, HOLC created this map that you see right here and indicated that these so-called detrimental influences, odors from industries, there were a lot of factories over there in the Fruitville / Coliseum area. That's also where a lot of the industrial, it's actually the Coliseum is called the Coliseum Industrial Complex. But that's not what they're putting out there. Again, they have sanitized it. So yes, and then that's where also you have the 880 freeway right there. So you got all this fumes coming from the trucks that's coming from 980 that used to be the double-decker bridge. Can't think of it, but the earthquake of 89 took it out. But anyway, so you have all the trucks. No trucks can be on 580, mind you. No trucks can be on 580. No trucks can be on 580, but they can be on 880. Okay, this is 580 up in here. This is 880 down here. Now look at all the red areas. Yeah, we can go ahead and we can just put all you black and brown people over there. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put all you black folks over there, and you ain't going to complain because you're going to be so happy to have a place to live. Meanwhile, the white people over there back at the Ponderosa, the white people done fought over there because they had white flight. By the way, Oakland used to be white. East Oakland used to be all white. And then there was an infiltration of Negroes. And those odors coming from the factories, they didn't want to be sick. So they flew up to the hills, of which they still reside. And so they fought to be able to have no trucks on that freeway. They got all the trees, and there are no trucks on that freeway on 580. So check out the area if you happen to live where you go through Oakland. Check out the areas you are up, let's say in Skyline, and you're coming down. Leave your windows down and see how crisp the air is. And as you get down to the lower bottom, you're going to see how thick that air gets. Next slide, please. So this is actually one of the original forms. I can't increase the size, but just know that it's true where I said that it's right in here where they talked about the odors coming from, the area. Again, those are all the factories. And guess what's still down there? A lot of those industry and auto places and fix this and fix that. And the trucks are going by and all these kids got asthma, but they didn't gentrify West Oakland, pushed everybody to East Oakland. And I, being a planner for a government agency, I'll just say, a government agency down there, I saw city council at the time If we needed help desperately. If we were to get that extra urban planner, it was going to cost us. And what it was going to cost us was where East Oakland was on the map to have a lot of those potholes replaced. It automatically switched to District 2, which was North Oakland, which don't need no help at all. None at all. But now that's been gentrified, North Oakland as well. It's pretty much all white. Pretty much Oakland is almost all white, except for this pocket. And they got to figure out what they're going to do. Next slide, please. I digress. So this is Sacramento's map. I wanted to include it. So you see these areas right here. You know where these areas are. Now, I'm new to Sacramento, but what I will tell you is this. I can guarantee you that this is East Sacramento. This map is just a different kind of way, but I can guarantee you this East Sacramento because it's just white people and it's full of trees. But as you come into, let's say, North Sacramento, let's say North Highlands, number one, the water is contaminated. There's 326 contaminated sites in North Highlands by itself. And nobody has stopped to tell these people, look here, y'all need to stop drinking this water. There's lead in it. There's arsenic in it. There's animal feces in it. Nobody's saying anything. But now we're starting to see some of these yellow areas, all these yellow areas right here. Oak Park is already starting to be gentrified. So as we lost a seat out here in California, and the redistricting is happening, there's a lot more that's coming. You got a lot of people that's coming into Sacramento because they see the possibilities, but where are the jobs and for who? So you must have basically your own business and or have some degrees in order to make it out here. Otherwise, you ain't going to make it. And then they just going to gentrify your area because we don't know. People perish because of a lack of knowledge. So I'm here sitting here giving the knowledge, and I expect for it to be passed on to other people. Next slide, please. Oh, by the way, go back to that last slide. With these, thank you. With these red areas now, what was supposed to happen back in 1977? There was a Reinvestment Act. Remember I told you about those community block grants that's supposed to happen? So there was a Reinvestment Act. Trump administration took it away. So if you see anything stalled, let's say in South Sacramento, North Sacramento, South Natomas, Arden Arcade, these are environmental justice areas. That's why Trump. So there needs to be some grants given. Where are the trees in South Sac? And why is there so much blight? And why is it so thick in air? There's a lot of things that's not being told to the people, but they're dying. We're dying. Next slide, please. So the health effects of gentrification are as follows: shorter life expectancy, higher cancer rates, more birth defects, greater infant mortality, and greater incidence of asthma, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, exposure to hazardous substances such as lead paint and gas emissions and lead water. I know because I've gone around and I have tested this water myself. Yes, in South Sac, North Sac, Arden Arcade, and Carmichael. Yeah. But it seems like it's all of Sacramento. But some places have less lead than others. If you are in the greater Sacramento area, you are especially at risk because there is more than one water purveyor that is supplying your water. Yeah. Roseville, which is part of Placer County, has great water. They don't need to use a filter. So if you're in Sacramento, please get a filter. Please get a Brita and filter your water and or boil it. But when you boil it, you're going to see all this white stuff around the pot. That's all those chemicals. Next one, please. So food deserts. Now, when you have blight and you have low house value, low property value, your schools, property taxes take care of the schools. That's why the schools are terrible. They're hiring these inexperienced teachers. It's a horrible mess of what's happening. We can't just talk about the land. We got to talk about all of it. It encompasses all of it: land usage, housing, public health, public education, and transportation. All of it. Have anybody ever wondered why North Natomas and South Natomas is separated by freeways? They use freeways. Okay. So, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, food insecurity is defined as a household level economic and social condition of limited or uncertain access to adequate food. Now, look here. If they put up one more gas station that where you can sell, you can buy cell phones and some fried chicken, I'ma scream. Seriously. I went through South Sac. They had them everywhere. And I smelled the church's chicken. Yes, I did. Now look here. We running out of time.
We got 4 minutes, and I want to make sure that we tie this into why should we care about this and how the broader picture of what the Prove It campaign is about electric vehicles. How does this all tie into the environmental justice conversation?
Thank you. So with all of this, the food, the housing, the land, us not owning any land, the freeways, our children coming up with asthma and autism. There's a reason for that. Is it in the water? Is it on the freeway? The cars with all of these emissions and gas house emissions with no trees. The reason why this is important is because we are dying, like I mentioned, from cardiovascular disease, asthma, other mental stressors that weakens our immune systems, not having access to healthy food. But more importantly, let's talk about that freeway and those gas house emissions. They are by our neighborhoods. And so therefore, one thing that is coming to light is the presence of electric vehicles. And some people might not want to buy an electric vehicle. They think it's just look like the Prius. You might not think you can afford one. Well, you can get a used one for as less as $6,000, and by the time you get to saving on your gas, it's okay. I got this going on. It's going to pay for itself. It's really going to pay for itself in a short amount of time. You're going to make less trips to the gas station, and since we're the ones that's congregating in our areas, then we will cease a lot of that emissions and pollution that's coming into the air from our own cars. Okay, so please consider buying a hybrid car. Dodge makes them, Toyota makes them, Ford makes them. A lot of people make them. And again, you can buy one for as little as $6,000. So, yeah, I think it's critical that I hadn't even thought about it until I really started doing a lot of research on this. And I'm really going to check in and look at buying an electric vehicle. So the next time I see you guys, then I'll have more information for you on why this is critical.
Broadcast from your vehicle.
I will broadcast from my dope hybrid, and I'm gonna show y'all the motor. I'm gonna tell y'all how many miles I get. I will tell y'all. I'll take a little road trip, and I'll tell you the big benefits on why this is important for us. This is a for us by us. This is FUBU.
Now, what do you think about the governor? He released an executive order proclaiming that California will be a zero emission state by 2035. Then they extended it 20 years to 2045. What do you think about that? The zero emissions part? Do you know enough to kind of explain the benefit and the purpose of that?
Well, the purpose of it is because, the health effects that are coming from these vehicles. First, they went from regular lead. I don't know if anybody remembers going to the gas station. The gas station reeked of gas. Well, yeah, it's a gas station, but it was really, really loud. It was a different kind of gas. It was regular leaded gas at the time. And then they switched to unleaded. And now they're switching because they're finding out that we are actually dying from that. And people of color, especially us, we don't have the same access to medical care as other people. So this is a preventive measure for us to be able to take care of ourselves and not keep breathing in a lot of these toxins that we're breathing in. So by 2035, 2045, I actually see them just eliminating gas altogether. We're already trying to do it when it comes to the turbines, the wind turbines, and providing electricity this way. And we're just coming away from coal, and we're coming away from gas, and we're coming away from oil and these things, because these things are hazardous to our health. They're killing us. And the number one people that happen to be dying, we have a low life expectancy as it is. We don't need any additional help. So we need to stop looking outside of ourselves and looking for government to take care of us. It's clear they're not going to do that. They don't want to do that. So why not take care of ourselves and encourage each other and do the research and see how the benefits of it also. But I'll come back and yes, because I'm in the market for a car. Maybe I'm gonna get me some stimulus money and go get me an electric vehicle.
Well, make sure you call us first so we can connect you with the
I
information,
am going to do
incentives, and
that.
rebates. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank our audience for tuning in today. This has been very informative. Maybe we can do a part 2 at some time, but thank you so much for your time. And we're going to give you guys back the rest of your day. We're 32 seconds over. So thank you. Have a great day and tune in next week for our Green Bag Luncheon. Have a wonderful rest of your day and your weekend. Bye.
Power to the people. Okay.